Oh, speaking of folks, I don't know how I'm going to do this. They had the official portrait unveiling today of Barack Hussein O and Michelle Maybell O, and I said, oh my. And so did the audience when one of these portraits was unveiled. And I'm watching, they did it at the Smithsonian. Now, I remember when the official portrait of Bill and the witch, Hillary Clinton, were revealed. They did it at the White House. They had it at one of the rooms in the White House. George Bush welcomed the Clintons in and all of their buddies, and smack dab right there in the front row was Harvey Weinstein. I'll never forget it. Weinstein was sitting there looking all proud and smug that he had made it in that high, that far. But the ceremony was in the White House. This ceremony today was over at the Smithsonian. And they took a break. I was watching it on both Fox and CNN. CNN took a little break because, of course, they had to have their anchor and 3 analysts weigh in on it. And what do you think we got? Some guy named Fallon. I don't remember his first name. He's a CNN contributor analyst. He didn't cry, but it was like, oh, my God, this is so wonderful to have braininess back, to have intelligence, to have people we can be proud of, the people that can unite us. I knew it was going to happen, so I was steeled for it. I was ready for it. But you people in the drive-bys are so predictable. Barack was sitting there with his head in the air like he always did, just above everything, while Michelle was going on and on and on about this artist that she found, who is a social justice artist, whatever that means. They unveiled the portrait, and, Brian, I wasn't thinking, you got it in there? Or I have a flash. All right, here you go, folks. This is it. Well, untouched, undoctored. If you're watching the Ditto Cam, there it is. That is the official portrait of Michelle Obama. And this is hard. I feel sorry. You zero in on that. You zoom in on that. And you know what? I'm going to let it speak for itself. I don't need to characterize this. I really don't. There's not a thing I could add once you get a look at this. Well, I know the people who can't see it are going to have to find a way to see it. Either become a subscriber at rush.limbaugh.com. That's not cheesy sales pitch. Or find it some other way. We'll link to it at rushlimbaugh.com. We'll do that. I say we'll do that. I can't sit here and say the only way you can see this, become a member of the web. No, that's what I'm saying. I'm not going to describe her, Mr. Snurdly. You're trying to lure me into a trap here. You want me to set the media off. You want me to blow them up so that I'll be the lead story for the next hour or two after I do it. And I'm not going there. This thing speaks for itself. I just tell you, I've seen presidential portraits because I have been in the White House. I've walked the hallways, and there's a bunch of them there. And this doesn't even get close to any of the, in style, I'm talking about. Forget artistic talent, just in style. I don't know. What would you call that? To me, I'm not an artiste, and I'm not, therefore, a credentialed, qualified reviewer of art. Art to me is, if I like it, fine. If I don't, I don't see a whole lot of things that aren't there. Just like I'm not into poetry. Poetry is symbolism. Just tell me the way it is. I don't want to have to weed through a bunch of prose. That's why Shakespeare never really appeared. Shakespeare is philosophy in prose. And I'd rather go read the translation of it. Because I'm just get in, get it, and get out. There's some things I like to learn the process of, but the art, but I'm just, this to me looks, I don't know, it faded watercolors. And it doesn't look like, that's it. I'm going no further, other than to say I'm sorry. This is. Now, I haven't lost my place. I'm living in the Olympics and so forth. These guys talk about how wonderful it is to have Obama back. Oh, it's so wonderful. And Barack and Michelle are so smart, and they're so sensitive, and they're so nuanced, and it just all didn't matter what they said, didn't matter what they did. It was the way they looked and the way they spoke, and everybody. Here is, if you're on the Ditto Cam, We're going to switch to the official portrait of Barack Hussein. Oh, go ahead and switch over there, Brian. Look at that. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be teasing or tempting those of you who do not have DittoCam service. But what in the world is that? Okay, I've got to describe this. It's Barack Obama sitting on what looks like a wooden throne without a high back. And he's sitting on that throne as you might sit on yours. Except that this throne looks like it's up against the ivy outfield wall at Wrigley Field. He looks like he's out there in the weeds. He's in a forest. And the look on it is a in my very unartistic estimation, it's a better facial reproduction of Barack, but he doesn't look happy. And is that right? He looked kind of grim, is that right? Trying to look serious and studious and so forth. Michelle My Belle Obama doesn't look happy either, but it doesn't mean much. These portraits, people try to look serious and very serious. But this, I'll tell you one thing, these two portraits are going to stand out in the White House. They are, you're not going to be able to miss these on Portrait Row. I just can't. Hi, welcome back. Great to have you. Off to a rousing start. Folks, we have some people that want to weigh in on the official Obama portraits. And normally I would keep going with the stuff I've got here that interests me, then go to the phones. Who knows how long it'd be from now. And I don't want to take these two calls or three, however it's going to be, an hour after I've talked about it. That just stops time and moves backwards. So let me get these calls. People who've seen these portraits want to weigh in. We'll start first in Springfield, New Jersey with Janice. And what are your thoughts on these?
Well, I usually listen to you on my little Radio Shack radio as I walk through the park because I can't get you on my cell phone. But when I saw those...
Now, wait. Why can't you get me on your cell phone?
Well, would you believe I still have one of those clam phones?
You mean a flip phone?
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of people do because they still use them on TV shows, and detectives and people that try to stay hidden use those things.
That's my cell phone.
I see. Well, that would explain it. Okay, so you have to take your radio with you as you're walking in the park.
Right. Yeah, I just can't afford. I just can't afford a what do you call it, iPhone right now.
An iPhone, right?
But I just want to say with Michelle. It looked like she was wearing an old car cover I used to have with that dress of hers. And she did not look very happy.
Now, that's a car cover?
Well, look at the size of her dress.
You're talking about the size of it?
Yeah. It just looked, I think the dress she wore to give her little speech would have been a lot better than what she was wearing. And then Obama, he didn't look very happy either. And... he looked like he was, besides being on a throne, he looked like he was in the middle of some pot plants. The leaves on those... Yeah,
you're not the first to reference that have that observation, that Obama appears to be out there among the doobies. It's weird. Folks, we can describe them, and I, of course, have, and there's no one better at that than I am. But still, you have to see these. The Michelle portrait, I don't know how to describe it. It doesn't look like any official portrait of anything I've ever seen. And maybe that was the objective. I mean, maybe that was the purpose here. But when I first, I thought, this doesn't even look like her, really, until you study it a little bit. Janice, thanks for the call. Dan in Carmel, Indiana. Great to have you with us. How are you, sir?
I am doing great today. How are you, Rush?
Good. Happy to have you with us.
Well, thank you. Well, I'm a retired art teacher, and looking at those portraits, I've had kids in ninth grade do a better job of shading, and adding highlights. The pictures are so flat. There's just no definition in the portrait.
You know, that's
whatsoever.
a great way to describe the Michelle Obama. With Barack's, there is some depth to it, at least attempted. But you're right. Flat is exactly the way to describe hers.
Yeah, and there's more colors in the shading of a face than just the one color. It's just.
Well,
anyway,
are you saying Michelle is multicolored?
I'm saying that if you shade a face, you don't just see one color. There's
so you got shadowing and that kind of thing. You mean?
Yeah, there's depth of color, and if you look at some of the Impressionist artists, they'll use complementary colors to get a shadow, and it adds depth and life to the portrait.
Right.
I've
always asked art experts if they can define art for me. And if somebody asks you to define what is art, what determines whether something's art and something's not art?
Well, I took a class in college about that, and I don't know that we actually defined it. And I think, as you said, I think if it's something, if you like it, that's art. And
I've heard people, people that spend millions buying an old Impressionist master, whatever, and they say it just makes them feel great looking at it. They just love the way it makes them feel. I've never had that reaction looking at art.
To any art whatsoever?
Well, see, that gets back to what we call art. Like, I guess I'm an artist. I'm a performance artist, although I've never thought of myself. I've thought of myself as a radio guy. But in our current iteration of things, I would be considered a performance artist by some. But this goes back to defining what is art. There are plenty of things I look at that make me feel great, but none of them have been painted.
Oh, okay. Well, that might be like a fine wine. Doesn't always depend on the price, but it depends on the taste.
Well, work of art, yeah, in terms of the process. But looking at the bottle and looking at a glass of it, the anticipation of it, the feeling is derived from consuming it.
That's true.
And I can't eat a painting.
No,
I'm being a little facetious here. I'm not
right.
I'm not trying to confound you or anything. I'm not trying to put down what you do. I think art is a talent, but look at Jackson Pollock. How he accidentally discovered in a rage just throwing paint up on a wall, and people pay millions for it. How will you explain that?
Well, it was a new movement, a new way of approaching art. Actually, one of my professors was an abstract expressionist like him.
Oh,
it was funny. It was funny to watch him paint, and then he told us to, as we're doing those paintings, you're supposed to rotate the canvas every once in a while, and then try to bring out things you might see, like you might see in a cloud. You might see forms or things pull out of the cloud.
Was it determined in the art world that Jackson Pollock throwing paint on a canvas was unique and different than anybody else who would throw paint on a canvas?
He was the first one that really came up with that whole idea. Kind of like Georges Seurat with the paint, with the dots, the pointillism. He was one of the first one that did that too. So that's kind of a new way of looking at things. And the same thing with the Impressionists, the way they were using light. And at first their paintings were vilified as just sketches. But
yeah, exactly. Those guys back in their day, it was good, but it wasn't anything spectacular like it is today. So it depends on standards applied to it. But before you go, I've always thought of art, people that can, the kind of art we're talking, painting and that kind of thing. I've always thought it was a talent that you have or you don't, and yet you're an art teacher. Does that mean you're actually teaching people the various techniques of painting, or you're teaching art history?
Well, I did both. No, we taught techniques and how to shade and how to, actually a big part of it is how to see and how to see how light reflects off objects. And
okay.
You could actually paint a brick wall, and you should see more than just a pink brick.
Well, that's just it. With the Michelle painting, there's none of that you're talking about here. It's just flat. You're exactly right. I would have never described it that way because I'm not the art expert. But when you say that, when you describe it as flat, it's exactly what it is. And how do you explain so little color in this work?
I don't. Like I said, in an not elementary, but in a ninth grade drawing class, you would hand it back to them and say, you didn't put anything in there. There's no shadows. There's no highlights. Where's the light striking the face?
Well, here's what's going to happen. This artist, I remember her first name is Amy, because she was chosen and because her portrait's going to be hanging in the White House. We're looking potentially here at a brand new genre, are we not?
I guess.
Well, don't be surprised. That's the way these things work. And for Barack's, I can't tell you the number of people. Well, I can't tell you what they told me it looks like he's doing. I'm going to stop right there because I just got an email from a friend. Subject line, some believe the moon landing was staged. I'm wondering if Michelle Obama is real. If this is a portrait of the real Michelle Obama, who was that other woman we saw with the president? A note from a friend. Look, we got other things coming up here, folks. In fact, we're really loaded, but with some more people want to weigh in on the artwork here for just a minute. We're going to limit this to this hour. We'll continue here with Joan in Sonoma, California. Great to have you. How you doing?
Well, thank you, Rush. I'm pleased to speak with you. When I saw the name Kehinde Wiley was going to be the artist chosen for the presidential portrait, I was stunned. I had seen his work in the museum in Kansas City. And what he does is he takes historical works, famous paintings, because then he says black people aren't represented, so he puts a black person in where the white person is in the historical painting.
Wait a minute. But that's not what this is.
Well, I don't know. I just know the style from the Kansas City Museum.
What is his name? Kehinde what?
Kehinde Wiley.
Kehinde Wiley. Well, what he has said about this work, and again, I shall, Brian, switch to it for people watching here on the Ditto Cam. Put it back here on the switcher. It is Obama sitting on a wooden throne, chair, but it's forwardly shaped like a throne, but it's not a high back. He's sitting leaning forward, legs are spread, like this man spreading here. I mean, leaning forward, no tie, jacket on, gigantic hands. Mm-hmm. I mean, gigantic hands. And the background is ivy and flowers. And what the artist has said here is that the back has captured Obama's heritage. He's got Hawaii and Kenya and Chicago.
Right.
Made up in the background.
Right. So I'm reading from the Kansas City Museum. His works reimagine famous paintings, substituting a contemporary African-American man or woman for the traditional white figure. Such images challenge the viewer to think about the dynamics of status, race, and representation.
Well, but, okay, so you mean he would take a Teddy Roosevelt portrait and put an African-American in the same scene? Correct. As an example?
Right, and the one in Kansas City is from Hans Holbein, St. Adrian. And he puts the black person in, only he's in a Yankees baseball uniform, and he's holding a sword and an anvil to show power and heroism. And they're all flowers.
Holding an anvil to show power and heroism, wearing a Yankee baseball uniform.
Yes, number 88.
As St. Adrian. That's deep.
Uh-huh.
That's really deep.
So, and then it's a black woman artist who did Michelle.
Yes. Her name is Amy Sherrill, and she's in Baltimore.
Okay.
And she's known as a social justice artist. Whatever that means. That's the story I have. Well, the story I have here is it's in the Daily Caller, who is known for her social justice painting style. You sound like you are in the art community. What is the social justice painting style?
I don't really know. I had a video store for 30 years, and I could tell you the amount of social justice conversation coming through my business office
Yeah.
in a very small liberal town.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
All right.
Is that it?
Yes, that's it. I just thought that you might be interested. And as I said, when I
I don't know how I would have finished this day without knowing all of that. Yeah, you've done a great service here. I appreciate it. Who's next? We have we got time for a couple more, maybe. That'd be Obi in Sanger, California. Obi, great to have you. How are you doing?
Well, hey, Rush, thanks a lot for taking my call.
Yes, sir, anytime.
I've got a comment on the paintings, and I got a comment on the wall.
All right.
And first, I just want to say the last time I talked with you was during the elections. I'm the fellow out in Looney, California here that had the Trump sticker on the back of my Porsche. I'm glad we won.
You're the guy in California that had the Trump sticker on the back of his Porsche.
Yeah. Anyway, my comment on the painting, and understand I don't...
Hang on, folks, we got the guy here who had the Porsche in California with the Trump bumper sticker.
Yep.
We've got the guy. What a get for us.
Okay.
All right.
My comment on the paintings, I looked at them on the internet here. I don't like the Obamas. I'm definitely a big Trump guy. But I'll tell you, I think the paintings look good. I thought both of them were creative, and they look good. And, that's, I don't want to go into that deeper, but let me just move on to my second comment on the wall.
You just said what you just said so that your comments on the wall will be taken seriously.
Well, I hope they are.
Yeah, see, I knew it. You don't really think that. You're just saying that so people will think that you're reasonable, tolerant, understanding, compassionate, and all those things. And now, when you load up and fire on the wall, people are going to listen.
Well, it's just a creative idea. I don't know if it'll work, and that is this. Trump is having such a hard time getting this approved, getting any cooperation from the Democrats or Congress. I'm thinking it in his capacity as commander-in-chief, why can't he order the Army Corps of Engineers to build the wall and pay for it out of the Pentagon budget and justify it as necessary for the national defense?
I don't think that he wants to do it that way because I think he wants there to be a consensus behind the building of the wall. I think he wants to do this in the quote-unquote right way. And I think he's confident he's going to get it done. And I think that he's confident he's going to get it done within the immigration fight that is taking place. So to go that route, and I technically don't know if the way you've laid it out here could actually be done. Commander-in-Chief granting him powers to order the wall built by who? The Army Corps of Engineers, perhaps, but I don't know what the legalities are. I just don't think that that's the way he's going to choose to go about it. Hey, the New York Times has weighed in on the two portraits. And the New York Times says that Barack Obama's portrait shows him not as a self-assured standard-issue bureaucrat, but as an alert and troubled thinker. An alert and troubled thinker, not self-assured standard-issue bureaucrat. Michelle Maybell Obama's portrait, according to the New York Times, overemphasizes an element of couturial spectacle. That's their way of saying the dress is too damn big. Her dress, couturial spectacle. But her portrait projects a rock-solid cool. Now, so there you have it, the official weighing in from the New York Times on both portraits. Okay, sit tight, folks. We'll be back before you know it. Let me grab a quick call before we have to go. Charleston, South Carolina, and Reese. I'm glad you waited, sir. How are you doing?
How are you doing, sir? Thank you for taking my call.
You bet. Happy to.
I was going to say, I love the artist's rendering of President Obama, and I think he's actually a closet conservative. because he accurately captured what Obama did to our Constitution, our military, and Americans throughout the world in his portrait.
Now, wait a minute. The artist captured what Obama did to the Constitution, the military, and America in his portrait. How?
Well, considering the position that he's sitting in and what is applied that he's doing, that is exactly what he did to America and our Constitution, our military.
Okay, well, I just had to hear it. I wasn't quite sure. I didn't know if you were talking about the ivy, the weeds in the background, or the short-backed throne on which. It is curious, folks. It is real curious. And the portrait of Muchel, my belle, that's... See, I thought we'd put the subject behind us. I'm dangerously close. I'm taking another break here.